we're right at noon, so I want to wish everyone a good afternoon and welcome you to the September 2025 Kansas Soil Health Partnership Forum. Once again, my name is Jennifer Simmelink. I am the Executive Director of the Kansas Soil Health Alliance, the host of today's forum. I want to thank you for joining us today. As a reminder, a recording of today's forum will be available on the Kansas Soil Health Alliance's website and our YouTube page. We'll also post the recording to our social media pages and in our newsletter, so you have plenty of ways to find it and previous recordings if you want to go back and watch any. I will again start off with a short quiz, getting some information about who's joining us today. I'm going to put a poll up. There's 2 questions. If you can take a quick second to answer them, that gives us some information about who's joining us today and the makeup of our audience. Okay, if we take a look at our results, we have a really nice breakdown of mix of farmers and ranchers, educators, agency, some of our NGO staff, ag professionals, and then other today. So I like the variety that we have, and we are all Kansans today. As a reminder, everyone will be muted during the presentation. If you have a question, there should be an icon at the bottom where you can raise your hand. I will be watching for that, and then we will be able to call on you and unmute you. At the end of the presentation, we'll likely have some time for some open Q&A where I can make it easier for everyone to be unmuted. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Joanna Johnson, the Outreach and Education Coordinator for the Kansas Soil Health Alliance, to introduce today's speaker.
Okay, so today we have Brady Burks. He is a graduate of Kansas State University with a degree in Wildlife Outdoor Enterprise Management. He and his wife Andrea, along with their 3 kids, live in Lebanon, Kansas, where they own and operate Burks Custom Farms and Burks Aerial Agriculture. Brady has worn many hats over the years, but now is focused on aerial application using UAVs. Brady is an advocate for soil health practices and his Savior Jesus Christ. Brady will talk primarily on the practical uses of drone applications specific to Kansas and the results that they are seeing. And with that, I will let Brady take it away.
Maybe. All righty. It's kind of weird you can't see everybody, but thanks for taking time out of your day, guys. I'm going to share my screen. My name is Brady Burks, like they introduced here, and I am a custom applicator here in Kansas using drones. My wife and I do farm and ranch a little bit. Let me pull my screen up here. So I'll go backwards here. All right, so today, again, thanks for everybody for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about practical applications in drone technology. A lot of the times when I've been to seminars or heard talks on drones, they don't really hit, like, they always say what they can do, like, oh, they can spray, they can map, they can do things, but they never actually talk about those applications. We get lost in the size and the legality of them. So talking about the legality here, and if anything's skipping or I lose audio or whatever, Jennifer, you guys just let me know. So right here, it says what you need. There are many hurdles to jump through when first starting out. Like I said, a lot of these I'm open to answer any questions of things that you like need. Uh, Again, a lot of these presentations that I go to on drones or things, they really talk about these things. So I'm going to kind of go through them quick. You do need to have a drone pilot's license. You do need to have exemptions from the FAA, medical cards, the Kansas Department of Agriculture licenses. So you have to be a commercial operator, but you also need a drone authorization waiver. You need to have insurance, of course, and then I have in there support equipment like pickups, trailers, things like that. Again, I can talk more about that. I'm just going to try and get through the slides here and then kind of leave it up to discussion. One of the things I get asked when I'm out spraying and guys drive by, they ask you the general questions like how big, how many gallons does it hold? How many pounds of seed does it hold? We'll talk about some of that. Will drone technology replace? I have down here ground rigs, airplanes, or even your operator. A lot of people in presentations say, drones are the future. They're going to replace ground rigs. They're going to replace the airplane. They're better than the airplane. And unfortunately, I today feel like the drones are just another tool in your toolbox. In the future, will they replace a ground rig? Maybe. I'm skeptical of it on certain chemicals that are measured out by ounces to the acre. And really kind of need a broadcast type application. Will drone technology replace airplanes and helicopters? There's a lot of drone operators that are like, oh man, we're better than an airplane, we're better than a helicopter. There is a lot of jobs that I get that a helicopter is going to be better than me, and there's jobs where an airplane is better than both of us. I think it's just another tool in the toolbox. And then on the far right there, I have my brother-in-law. He flew with me this summer, and I have Orr. The talk now is that drones will eventually not even need the operator, that there could potentially be a doghouse, at the edge of each field. And there are examples of this even in the state of Kansas, where drones are just out there weeding and spraying and things like that. Is it possible? Yes. I think back in the day, there were guys with horses that said a tractor wouldn't be possible, and here we are today. So that's kind of where we're at. Broad overview there. The drones that I currently fly, I have two DJI Agris T50s. They're the two that are on the left on the screen there. I started out with an Agris T40, and before the T40, there were T30s and so on and so forth. You can pre-order now a T100 that's coming out. Right there, I've got the specs. The specs really aren't super important. This just so happens to be for this T40. The liquid tank is 10.5 gallons. It had, from the manufacturer, a rated swath width of 30 foot. You can kind of read the stats there for yourself. Going forward, like the T100s and some of these other drones are going to have 20 and 30 gallon tanks. So they're only getting bigger and more efficient there. Some are coming out with LiDAR even as a way to terrain follow the ground and obstacle avoidance and things like that. So they are getting light years better, even just from a couple years ago with the T40. I have on here the dynamics. So from the previous slide, they talk about having a rated swath width and things like that. This is kind of getting in the meat and potatoes of what I wanted to talk about today is kind of the art that is drones and application, because there is no, like if you have a grain drill and you open up the back of the grain drill, in there it says soybeans and set the sprockets to this size and the belt to this, and you get what you want. Drones are not that way. There is no manual that says, this setting achieves this. You have to understand your equipment. The still picture, the still image up here of the drone spraying, if that drone is standing still and you turn the sprinklers on, you're not getting a swath width. Like, as you can see in that picture, the pattern is going straight down. So a drone, when you're spraying, there's an influence on your pattern based on your height above the crop, based on your speed, because you're getting that prop wash and it's, creating um, a pattern. And then also droplet size, you can increase and decrease the droplet size, which will affect your coverage and all sorts of things. Down there in the bottom right, that's the dry tank that goes into some of these drones. It's the same way. You have to calibrate the seed that goes into that, like flow calibration, and then you have to you can set the spinner gate, how far it opens, how much it closes, the RPMs of the spinner, so how fast it's going to throw it out there. Then you have to take into account how fast you're flying the drone. So there is a lot of calibration and a lot of kind of an art to it that people don't think about. If you open these up out of the box and just set it to the max everything, you're going to have a poor operation, poor coverage, poor results in what you're trying to do. So at the very bottom there, I said it is less about the drone and more about the operator. I'll admit, when I first got a T40, I got it out, I put dye in it, and I turned on the sprinklers, and I went out there at the measuring tape, and I'm like, well, this isn't 30 foot. Like, what's going on? And it very quickly realized how they work. I've got on here limitations of drones. It is not an airplane. It is not a helicopter. And you still have to get next to the field. So the picture I have here is from this summer doing fungicide on corn. Yes, you can go if it rains versus a ground rig, but you're still limited by your signal. So you have to keep signal from the remote to the aircraft, to the bird. And then I've got on there beyond visual line of sight. That's what that B loss says. Regulations are changing all the time, and you can get exemptions and things like that. But for the most part, as a personal rule, you want to keep line of sight with that drone. So you can get a long ways away, you can fly a long ways away as long as you can see the drone. And most of the time, if you can see the drone, you can keep signal. But that is a limitation of these drones. I can't park somewhere and fly a mile and then start spraying. I have gallons per acre and pounds per acre. It has this particular drone, around a 10.5 gallon tank. You can applicate at 5 gallons to the acre or more. You can spread cover crop at 150 pounds to the acre if you wanted to. But obviously that's going to kill your efficiency. That's going to kill your body and affect how much you can do in a day. So those are just some limitations I put in there. Sometimes I get calls to do jobs and they're like, well, you could park here and fly here and then go over there and fly there. And it just, you have to be next to the field, really. I have on here the process. So kind of what it looks like when you go to spray. I have on here, it says, set up your trailer to be efficient as possible. Keep the drone in the air and don't waste time on the ground. Move with the drone to keep your ferry times down. I have mapping for efficiency. Monitoring your weight and battery management and proper maintenance is important. At the very bottom of this slide, I say you can spray small patches or large ag fields like an airplane. So to sum this up, what I'm getting at is drones are perfect for 1 acre dry lots and small, 10-acre fields, alfalfa fields that are all cut up, and we'll talk about that. But a lot of people don't believe that they are capable of doing what a plane or a helicopter is doing. So just a little educational slide here. This is my trailer that is in these pictures. This is my setup. When you arrive at the field, you get the rails folded up, you get your chargers out, your batteries out, get the drones out and unfolded. The top picture is my uncle's tractor. If it's muddy out and you're fighting dirt roads, we just hook it onto that tractor and you can drive it around and get something done. One of my best days this year was over 400 acres with 2 guys and 2 drones, like 2 birds in the air. But like today, I'm going to spray 20 acres and in the whole day, in multiple patches. So it is possible to do large amounts of acres, and that doesn't mean that they have to be large fields, but every time you get done mixing loads, folding and unfolding, I have don't waste time on the ground. people like to joke, they're like, well, if it only holds 10 gallons, you're doing a lot of filling and a lot of battery replacing every day. And that is true. And one time I timed myself while we were on the ground. And if you figure that your drone lands 63 times in a day or more, and you're on the ground for a minute, you can waste a whole hour of your day just in battery swaps and filling. Well, then if you factor you're getting 30 to 60 acres an hour, you just wasted that much time in a day. Mapping for efficiency. You can map fields many different ways, but just really thinking about how you're going to take on a field or a pasture and any obstacles and things like that. And your maintenance is really important. Just like farming and tractors and balers and things like that, your maintenance is really killer. Your generator takes a poop on you. You're fixing that, and every hour that you're trying to diagnose what's going on there, you're losing acres. So 1 is none and 2 is what you need, or however that goes. Here are some truck and trailer rigs. Top left is mine when I first started. As you go over to the right, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but the one in the shop there is mine. The bottom, the far right image is a buddy of mine. He's an applicator kind of in northeast area or eastern part of the state. He just built this last year. The bottom 2 images, so the pickup and then the one in the middle, is a buddy of mine out of like Hill City area. He actually got into airplanes, so he's going to be an airplane pilot now, custom applicating with airplanes. But these are some rigs that people have built to become more efficient, and they're constantly evolving. That's kind of the fun of it. Is all winter long you'll think about what created kind of a time bottleneck for you. I've got on here seasons. Might have to go back a slide. This doesn't want to load always. Okay. So in the drone world here, similar to the seasons that we're kind of thinking about, you have spring, you have pasture for winter annuals, bugs and alfalfa. You can do some pre-plant burn down. We can talk about that later on. I've got soil amendments, so you can do dry humates and dry products out of that spinner tank, out of that spreader apparatus. Summer, we've got fungicide on corn and beans and wheat, insecticide and foliar feeding plants. Fall, spreading cover crops, pasture spraying for trees and brush. Winter, I have frost seeding pasture, spraying out brome and CRP acres, and feeding wildlife. The feeding wildlife one is funny. You can take the I've seen guys do it. You can take the spinner off of your dry tank, and guys are literally like dropping corn to feed deer and birds and things. I've not personally done it. There's some crazy things out there. So here I've got videos on top left is doing some work on some wheat. The top right is fungicide on some corn. You can really see how the drone terrain follows those acres there. Bottom left is some soybeans. This is with a buddy of mine where we were running 2 drones, not this summer, but the summer before, doing a little insecticide and fungicide on beans. And then, of course, the pasture one here, spraying some thistle. I'll try not to let the videos play. They'll kind of kill the efficiency here of the PowerPoint. I got a little over excited there. Starting with the beginning, we're going to kind of go in the beginning of the season and then talk about the applications. And there's some in here. I'm going to probably blow through these just for the sake of time. Yeah, because we're already 2:20. To get to the things that I feel like most people would want to hear the most about as it pertains to Kansas. I've got alfalfa in here. You can get in the field when it's wet, like we talked about earlier, versus a ground rig. You can almost be faster than a ground rig on small acres. So in the top left, I have a picture there of some alfalfa that I sprayed with a drone. The ground rig would have to fold up 3 or 4 times to get around all of those patches and then unfold and refold. and you can see by my line there, by visual line of sight, I could spray all of those. And so they're on certain small acres, you can almost be more efficient than a ground rig, be faster. No tire traffic on young plants. So like today, we've been fighting a lot of bugs, fall armyworms and things of that nature. There's some newly seeded alfalfa in the country, and guys don't want to put a sprayer track in it with it being new. Pasture is a big one. I'll let these videos roll while I talk. Pasture and drones are awesome. Obviously, the musk thistle, the standard weeds you think about, but for trees, and especially for my business, the brush and trees has been a big one, because yeah, we have plenty of woody encroachment, and so if you're going to drive around on a four-wheeler, you're going to puncture tires. You're going to have to weave through all that stuff. Given the nature of especially north central Kansas, where our acres are pretty cut up, and airplanes kind of not, going to be used because you don't want to drift onto neighboring crop fields and things. So here are some results. We've sprayed a lot of trees, locusts, hedge. I mean, you can see the video in the bottom left here. This is a job we just pretty recently did. And so we're trying to get back the native grasslands of Kansas by fighting woody encroachment. Let's see here. So results continued. You can see the left-hand side of the screen, what they looked like. Middle of the screen, what they look like after being sprayed. The far right is actually my own personal acres. We followed up. We sprayed some trees, locust, hedge, woody invasives, and then followed it up with a spring burn. And it's amazing the results we're seeing there. Wheat, I'll be quick on wheat. Fungicide on wheat here. This is in northeast Kansas. This is on my uncle's farm. This is one of the first jobs I ever did with a drone. And you could literally see when I went back, the yield and stuff is not, I'm not saying I did that as, if you spray with a drone, you're going to achieve that. It's kind of an integrated approach to achieve that, but it does show up in wheat, and especially in corn and beans when you think about a fungicide pass and different things. I put this in here because this is one of the first jobs I did as a drone pilot, and you could visibly see where the drone went and didn't go. I hung way off the trees because I didn't want to crash it, still learning. And that application paid big time where it went and didn't go. Same thing on corn. We talk about applications on corn. Fungicide, as we progress through the seasons, you get into corn and bean fungicide. I've got a picture here in the center. This picture is from last year. I couldn't get one this year. We just, but this corn is starting to dry down. And in northeast Kansas, where you have high rust, tar spot, gray leaf spot, like this corn is super healthy as it's drying down. And that was from an application using a drone. So you can see all the leaves on this plant are pretty healthy in a very high disease pressured area of northeast Kansas. The bottom left here, the bottom left picture and the right picture, you can't see it in the bottom left picture, but this year we sprayed this corn with a fungicide and stayed dark green like the picture in the middle, like as it's starting to dry down and go into fall harvest. But if you look at the picture on the right, there's a power line that cuts across that field in a corner, and I just left it off just for safety. I'm like, again, it's my family's farm, so we just cut that off. But if you go back, and I couldn't get any pictures of it, we didn't travel back there, and my uncle's been busy, but this little corner here shows a drastic difference of, disease and dead, basically, versus the rest of this field that's dark green. Again, I'm trying to just kind of get through it here so we have time for questions and things. Soybeans, the same way. Soybeans, once you know what you're looking for, soybeans will streak up really bad if you don't get good coverage. So once you, like as an applicator, I can see things because I'm doing it for a living. But going back to setting the parameters of your drone and knowing what your equipment can do and can't do, you can drive by soybean fields and tell, if they've been sprayed by fungicide, if you got good coverage or not, especially this time of the year. They can, by streaking up, I'm saying they can stay real dark green in the middle and then start to lose leaves and then be real dark green again because you didn't get nice even coverage across it. So here's just a video of us, my brother-in-law and I, and my uncle here, out covering some soybean acres. One of the things I put this video in here to highlight that on the drone, we can program it to have a spray and a non-spray area. So like that waterway, the drone will shut off going over that waterway. Kind of a minimal thing if you think about it, but over thousands of acres, that one, that shutting off and turning back on could save in chemical costs and help the environment because you're not spraying directly over the grass. So cover crops, I put several slides of cover crops in here because it is the Kansas Soil Health Alliance, and I know a lot of people watching this might be interested in cover crops. So I kind of hammered home on the cover crop side of things and drones. Drones have that spreader tank again. I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but that's kind of what that spreader tank looks like. And they can seed cover crops. And they work, how do I put this? We've not done like thousands and thousands of acres of cover crops, but it is in my opinion that we've done quite a bit more than the average drone operators do because they are, as you can see in the pictures, you're moving some seed. In the bottom right picture, we did a cover crop job that when that job was done, that was 18,500 pounds of seed. Well, to load the drone, we did that with buckets. And we partnered with another drone operator to get that job done. The job at the top right with the white bags, that would have been 11,000 pounds of seed. We were putting that out at 50 pounds to the acre. You can get, for an airplane and things, I'm not trying to dog the airplane, but with the drone, you don't have to take your seed to the airport. Typically, drone operators aren't as busy this time of the year. And so you can kind of play the rain a little bit versus just like taking it to the airport and getting fit in, so to speak. Yeah, I've got on here what blends work, what does not, timing and rain. Ultimately, timing and rain make any operator look good. I've got blends on here that work for drones. The best thing that works are small seeded things. So turnips, radishes, alfalfas, clovers. On some of these jobs that we're doing 50 some odd pounds of the acre, you can do rye, wheat, things that are heavier and bigger. But the small seeded stuff obviously works really well because it's got that spinner disc on it to broadcast the seed plus the prop wash forcing it down. I feel like you get a better, again, there's no like scientific data, but if you go and stand under that thing when it's coming across you, if you got the spinner disc cranked up, it's going to sting. It's like forcing it down. So you could infer that maybe it's getting better seed to soil contact versus just kind of sprinkling out over the top of it. So there's that. I've got what blends work. I mentioned small seed. What does not work? I've done some cowpeas, soybeans, just random stuff around my own ranch, just messing around, and bigger stuff seems to not work. Not only do I feel like it takes more rain to kind of get in the soil and get to growing. But it's also super hard on your props. It's a bigger seed. Seed inevitably kind of goes up into the props, and so it just the vetches, the peas, the like I say, if you had soybeans or something, some of those bigger things, not only are they a little harder on the drone, getting them to germinate just takes seemingly more time. So here's some cover crop jobs that we've done. This video that's auto playing was some alfalfa, clovers, turnips, radishes, things like that that came out of the drone. This all of these were droned on, if you will. Let me go back real quick. Here's a video going over corn, and then that same job, you can see in the bottom left some of the emergence on that. If I remember right, that job was seeded at 35 pounds to the acre, and not a ton of rain. It rained that night after we did that job, and then like nothing until after harvest. So still the following spring was good. Here's one, just some more videos of stuff that's come out. This turnip radish job on the right that I've got a picture of, and then the video in the middle that's moving, that was on corn that got hailed out, and the producers wanted cover, but they also wanted cattle feed. And by having that sunlight down there, I think made a huge difference in the standability. You know, they didn't have the canopy. We went back and looked at this job. We try to go back and look at all of our jobs if we have time. Obviously, if they're like close to the ranch and it, you know, it's windy or rainy or whatever, like so that we can learn. So that job there, this turnips and radish job, was done at like 5 pounds to the acre. And we went back to look for skips and just ways that we could continually learn. But I think the corn got picked here not too long ago, and I'd want to get some time to go back and see how that's doing. The audio on. I have on here, what can drones do for you? I have private application. I meant to put commercial there, but well, private application. If you have your own farm and ranch, drones are super handy. You know, if you farm a lot, you're gonna be like, man, they're not as efficient to go fungicide all my acres. So you'd probably find yourself hiring a custom applicator. But if you think about the things that you would spray, I think about my own ranch here, and I think about having a 4-wheeler or a UTV, and the things that I would spray. The drone is way more efficient. You're not ruining tires. You're not. I mean, you can just go out and handle a problem on a spot treatment basis. So I have private application there. Even if you're not out commercially applicating, you could use a drone. I have diversify an operation. If you are a farmer and rancher in Kansas and you're looking for a way to get the next generation to come back and farm, you're looking for a revenue stream for that person to farm. Having a drone, it might be a good way to do that. They could do some custom application on the side and still predominantly farm, but we all understand that it takes sometimes farming can't support multiple families, generational families, and you have to have a job, quote unquote, in town. Well, a drone is a way to diversify an operation. For myself, the drone business here is my full-time occupation. It is my quote unquote town job. We do custom graze some cattle. These are some steers that we custom grazed last summer. My wife works part-time at the hospital, but she's a stay-at-home mom. And so the drones have afforded us to farm and ranch and do what we value as important. On the far right, I have Beyond. If you can think of it, the drone can possibly do it. This was like spreading millet on duck marshes, and so a lot of we did some applications this year on like deer food plots and things that, again, if you're an out-of-state landowner and you had to choose between hauling a tractor or a UTV from Louisiana to Kansas, a drone's a lot easier to manipulate. I've got on here less is more. I got a video here of doing some fungicide on corn. Long term in agriculture, I have on here less is more, and it's kind of open ended. But like I mentioned, not spraying the waterways, being able to spot treat a pasture like this picture in the middle is my own behind my house here. I didn't spray that entire pasture. I only targeted the spot that I had a thistle problem in. Talking about turning the drone off when you're flying over waterways and things. Especially with the economics of ag and things. I do like the drones. I like the drones. I like to make the argument drone versus airplane versus ground rig from a less is more standpoint. Again, I believe it's a tool in the toolbox and you need all kinds of kinds. But I do like the ability to start being more dialed in, if you will. So I've got on here less is more with drones. Because you can just get really, really detailed on what you're trying to do. With that, that's all I've got. I'm probably kind of rambled there a little bit. It's a little weird talking directly into nothingness here, so I will stop sharing my screen. And I do have some notes that maybe I didn't cover. I could elaborate on any other applications, but trying to fit this into the window here. That's what I got.
Thanks so much for presenting, Brady. So I thought that was great. And yes, I agree. It's never fun talking kind of just to yourself. So you did wonderful, and we appreciate you for joining us. So with that, if anyone has some questions about anything to do with the drones and their applications or how things work, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll get you unmuted so you can ask that question, or you can also put things in the Q&A down at the bottom of your screens, and then we can address them that way as well. So that would be good. Well, maybe those questions are coming in. So where all have you traveled across the state?
I have been as far east as Donovan County and as far west as Oakley, and as obviously north to the state line and south to you say almost Great Bend. So we cover a pretty large territory, or
Does
large
it
anyway.
does it change if you were to cross state lines? I was on a committee for something that actually was discussing drones and such, and that Kansas had some of the most progressive policies towards the regulations and use of them. So does it change if you were to go? So for everyone's information, Brady and I live 5-7 miles apart from each other, pretty close. So we're both up here against the border. So if you traveled 20 miles north, does that change anything that you're able to do once you cross over a border?
Yeah, you have to be licensed in the state of Nebraska. Kansas has reciprocating licenses with so you can kind of just pay a fee. How do I put this? Ground, you put me on the spot on my rules in red here. I this year did not applicate in Nebraska because you have to so Kansas, with all the states around it, has reciprocating licenses that you can pay to just transfer your commercial applicators. But then each state is kind of different. Like you have to take maybe that state's applicator course or attend the PASS program. Everybody's got their acronyms, but I chose not to applicate in Nebraska this year or seek my licensing there because it's just expensive. So it doesn't really change in the state of Kansas, but I don't venture out just for that. How do I put it? It is super overwhelming to stay on top of all of the, because you are dealing with the FAA, you're dealing with the Kansas Department of Ag. You know, within the KDA, you have to have your commercial applicators license, your pesticide business license. You have to have the Kansas drone authorization waiver and more. I was talking to somebody the other day. They didn't even realize that you had to have, there's different categories within your commercial applicators license. And so I'm not dogging that person, but like the person who sprays your house for bugs has a different commercial app, like they have a different category within the commercial applicators license. Um, you're reading labels on things. There's just a lot. And to be honest, I don't mind traveling or staying in a hotel or whatever. As far as my longevity and what I do for a career, that will be the thing that will ultimately make me not want to do it, is the kneecapping of the drone industry with rules and regulations. And we're not even talking about DOT numbers, because you're on your pickup, pulling that trailer down the road, the IRS. I mean, you start adding all these things to a small business owner, and it's just like, man, is it even worth it? And so a lot of people are buying drones thinking they're super cool, and I'll be a custom applicator and it'll be a get rich quick scheme. And there is a lot that happens in the office more than what happens. And that's part of why, I don't know if I'm going down the rabbit hole on you, I'm sorry, but hiring a bunch of guys, getting more rigs, more drones, because I just don't know if I want that stress in my life. So,
what if someone, how many people, is this something that a person would purchase just privately for their own farm use? And if they do, I know for, running a sprayer, you have to have your, applicator's license. What is it if you were only doing it for your farm, ground that you manage? What are the requirements for that piece?
I don't want to speak on that because I could be wrong, but I've
Sure.
had that question come across before. You would for sure need your Part 107, soon to be Part 108 licensing. How I interpret it is you would still have to have some of these waivers from the state, and like I say, I don't. And then your insurance wise too. Just how I've wondered that. The short answer is I don't know. But like I would assume the route still involves, like I mean, obviously with the FAA, you would have to have your 107s, 108s, your exemptions and things like that, even if you weren't out custom applicating. But I don't know how it works with the other, with the rest that, if you still need a big, huge insurance policy or not, and all that.
No. Understood. Definitely don't want you speaking on a piece that you don't have that personal experience with, but it's a curiosity as those are talking, or as there's conversation about what these can mean for changes in agriculture and their impacts. Let's see, I'm still scrolling through. Oh, here we go, Kevin. I'm going to let you unmute yourself, and we have a question for you.
Not so much of a question as just a thank you for Brady. He sprayed a pasture for me out to Portis, Kansas here, and did a really good job. Just take the opportunity to say thank you, and it's well done.
Sweet. Thank you.
That does bring up a good piece on the pasture side. How do you see, and I know you kind of touched on it, but what do you think as we talk, and I know you and I see it a lot between your house and mine, the woody encroachment challenge that is being faced across many parts of the state. Where do the drones fit in? What do you think would be, an ideal setup when you combine prescribed burning, spraying, manual removal? How can you see them all working together to maybe start to move the needle on some of that localized encroachment?
Yeah. For starters, again, I'm not dogging the airplane. I just, for starters, I almost put it in the presentation, but like the video of all those trees that were changing colors, I call that a spot application. We did not individually spray those trees. Although drones have the capability to make a prescription map and only spray those trees. But if you took that, say, half section of pasture, we did just pencil out like this area, this area, this area, and then went on an AB line and treated those. If you took a larger plane or whatever, it just probably wouldn't even be possible and or safe. So I'm not dogging the airplane there, but money wise, that producer was like, man, he got to treat the worst areas of that pasture. Obviously, as a custom applicator, I would love to treat the whole thing and go back and forth, but we treated those, and then his plan is to come back eventually and light a fire through it. So huge. So most of my business comes from the fungicide run on corn and beans, but the most satisfying part of what I do is I'm super passionate about the rangeland, and when you can drive by and look at these areas that like just again are guys going out and spraying them with a 4-wheeler, or are they trying to make for the money. Drones are huge in pasture. That's why I say eventually I think guys will just have them and just spot treat areas. As far as like a full program, I would be spraying trees like now. We're getting a little bit later, but if trees are your problem, not eastern red cedar, but if most of what your problem is woody encroachment, I would spray in the fall. Over the winter, I would work on your getting your ground, a burn plan, getting your ground prepped to burn, some mowing, doing whatever you need to do. I would cut and pile mechanically cedars, great big trees that maybe didn't die or won't die. And then come the spring, burn, and then manage your grazing from there. And you put all of those things as an integrated approach together with the aerial side, the mechanical side, and then a grazing management plan. Huge difference. And I see what I see happen a lot in our area in particular is guys will hire the airplane now. The airplane wants to run now because the crops are coming out and everything. You're less chance of. I want to run now. Like I say, everything's going to harvest, but guys are trying to time it to kill the trees and the thistle or just the thistle. And so they're just you can drive by pastures and look at trees, they're all dinged up, the tops are all knocked out of them. And that's probably because they've been spraying that pasture in the fall or early spring. Mm-hmm. And so they're not killing the trees, but they're managing the thistle. And that's not a dig at anybody, but with the drone, you can say, okay, I want to spray at this time, maybe just the trees, and then I'll come back with a different chemical in the spring to do just the thistle, or and save money that way as well.
Very good. I do see, I'm scanning the list of attendees, and I see several who I know are agency staff. So I might put you on the spot if you guys are able to unmute and listen. Is there any talk, or have you heard of anything where drone applications, do they fit into any of the enhancements with any programs that folks can apply to, or does that tie in on any of these, pieces of doing anything with the programs? I said, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but it is just a piece I thought of while we were talking. Great. Okay, Alex.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, thank you.
Perfect. So yeah, I mean, with whether it's cover crops or doing brush management chemically, we can use drone technology just like we have allowed folks to use airplanes in the past. We've got some different seeding rates, obviously, with cover crop stuff or broadcasting versus drilling. But we really don't care how the seed gets broadcasted as long as we're meeting those baseline seed requirements or applying the proper products for chemical application on on brush management scenarios. So, you know, I think we've definitely seen some of it through our programs with folks using drones. You know, not everybody's doing it. You know, it's still pretty new technology, but definitely have done it through our programs with NRCS, and I think we'll definitely see it continue that way.
Great. Thank you so much for answering that for us.
I don't know if there's any like Kansas Department of Wildlife Parks type in this list here, but I do know I've personally been asked. I know that like Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks and some of the like other agencies, I've not done work for them. I'm just saying, like, I know they're really dialing in on projects to be more targeted. So say Phragmites, for example, you know, instead of treating the whole pasture or whatever, they're using drones to scan and make prescription maps. Same thing with trees in some areas. I mean, again, trying to make more dialed approaches to things.
There we go, Scott. Okay, you should be able to unmute, Scott.
Brady, thanks for that information. I had a couple of questions. One of them was, I really like the idea of being able to go in and on these hailed out crops. So is that something that the crop insurance would pay for under the RMA?
I'm not sure. You would have to talk to your insurance. I'm just the applicator on that deal. I know it hailed, and those guys called me up and said, "Hey, we want to fly a cover crop. Here's what we want to do it at, and here's why." And so I showed up and applied. So I would have to ask and find out for you if they would help with that or not, how that would work.
Well, yeah, and the only reason why I said that was because I'm with the Department of Health and Environment, and we're always looking for ways to have people incorporate cover crops and improve their soil health, and that was fascinating to me. I've seen the high boys and those kind of things, but watching the results of that drone between those corn rows was really impressive. The second thing is, we get questions about this every once in a while, and I was curious to know, is there a separation distance from the crop? How close can you get to the crop? And is that a part of the chemical application instructions, or is that some kind of a requirement through KDA or?
So the drone, you can set the height above the crop. And most of it depends on what you're trying to applicate. So if you're spraying, well, first of all, you can tell the drone how high you want it to stay off the crop, and it will keep that.
Okay.
So like if you're fungicide, like spraying fungicide or a fertilizer or something on corn, you know, say 8 to 12 feet. If you're doing a cover crop application, you might tell it 15 to 18 feet. There is rules, kind of common sense, but I mean, they're in the FAA's rules, like in your commercial operating agreement, like you can't fly a drone over 55 pounds, like at a certain, there is a ceiling for them. But as far as like applications, I personally just follow the label, and if you have a funny feeling about it, just don't do it. It's kind of my rule of thumb.
Yeah, I was just surprised that it was that high off of the crop. I thought that would be one of the more environmentally safety factors, would be having less area for drift. So that's the reason why I asked that question.
Yeah, if you watch, that's why I think a drone working in if you watch other ways to apply crops and you factor in power lines and tree rows, the drone can go under the power line or right next to it versus something else that might have to
go over the top.
And so yeah, 10 foot might be maybe considered high off the, above the canopy of whatever you're
Right,
spraying.
right, right.
But at the end of the day, you're moving like this through the field instead of like,
Yeah.
and so, environmentally wise, you can get down and get actual coverage versus that. But
Yeah, I totally agree. And appreciate your honesty. I like the idea that you put in things that you have to be concerned about and limitations, because when the drone market came out, we were getting all sorts of questions from all these grant people about this, and it almost sounded like a silver bullet, and it's not ever a silver bullet. There's always got to be some thought, some investment, and certainly some maintenance and those kind of things. And as you said, there's probably people out there that thought this was a great way to start a business and get rich quick. And we're sure it's not, but we really want to make sure, in my personal opinion, we want to make sure that operators like you stick around, because we know there's other folks out there that may not be quite as responsible. So appreciate your time.
I appreciate the kind words. That's great. I will add to that, just not to gain anyone's like business or approval, but we do farm and ranch, very small acres. My family farms in Northeast Kansas. So I do care. Like, some of the applications that I make are on guys in my own community, or my own family. And so, talking about going back and looking at jobs, I have a pasture today that I sprayed. I'm not going to go back and do it today, but I have a pasture on my list that I sprayed. And I went back to look at it. I'm like, man, I did not kill. I missed a piece. And I told the guy I missed them. Missed a spot. I'm going to make it right with you. And I'm not saying that so everybody likes me. I'm just saying I do care. And because our family does farm and ranch as well, I do understand the economics of farming and ranching, especially on the corn and bean fungicide run. A lot of guys just want to cover acres. It's just fungicide is what people say, and it's not just fungicide. You can go back and see when you made a mistake, or like I use that power line as an example. My uncle and I laughed about it because we both agreed, hey, we're not going to try and have an accident here. But it's like, man, you can tell what you did and didn't do. And so and then like the money that he spent, people spend. I understand what the economics are right now, and so I just, I'm not out to pillage at the expense of my own community. So
Good answer.
I agree. That was a great way to wrap it up. As everyone knows, you can, if you have any follow-up questions or any, questions or comments, you can send them to Joanna or me, and we can help get you in touch with Brady if you think of something after the fact. But we're coming up at the end of the hour, so I want to thank Brady again for speaking to us, and just as he's expressed to us that concern for the land and animal and people and community, which is a lot of what we speak for with Kansas Soil Health Alliance, and speaking from that viewpoint of being a farmer and rancher and understanding things from that perspective. So thank you for taking the time to prepare the presentation and presenting to us today. And with that, I'm going to let Joanna hop back on and give us a preview of next month's forum. As a reminder, that will be our last one for 2025, as November and December, the last Thursday of each of those months, is hitting a holiday. We will be putting out the registration link for the 2026 forum on next month's forum, and also through our newsletter and on our website. So we'll have ways for you to make sure that you don't miss anything once we get going back again in 2026. So I'll let Joanna finish us out for the day.
Yeah, so next month will be on October 30th, and we are going to have Brian Rast with us, and we have been trying to get him on one of our webinars for a while. He is currently a water resources project manager at Stantec in the Kansas City area. He is going to be talking about a project that he has been working on with several people, and the current project is kind of a supporting project to a previous one. He's going to be presenting about flood mitigation at a watershed level. He's going to explain the 10 Kansas nature-based solutions and the models that were created along with those solutions. And so he will be sharing information about the nature-based solutions, and then also explaining how the models have been evaluated using different watersheds. And so it will be that will be on October 30th, and it will be an interesting topic. So.
Great, thanks for that preview. I think that'll be a really neat one, showcasing how management decisions on the farm can affect, that downstream watershed and flood mitigation risk for ag and communities. So that will be neat. With that, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll hope to see you again back in October. For those of you who are out on the land, we hope you have a safe harvest, and we'll be with you again in October.